Welcome to Expert Disptach, your go-to source for in-depth discussions on critical national and global issues. I'm Mary Hunter, a visiting research fellow at the Centre for Strategic and Contemporary Research and a PhD graduate from the University of St Andrews. Today I'm discussing increasing terrorism in Pakistan and the state's response with Riccardo Valle. In the annual security report by the Centre for Research and Security Studies, it was found that the year 2023 marked a record 6-year high in violence-linked fatalities in Pakistan, with as many as 789 incidents of terror attacks and counter-terror operations, marking a continued escalation in violence since 2021. 2021 is a significant year in terms of the withdrawal of coalition forces from Afghanistan and the capture of Kabul by the Taliban, given the relationship between the Taliban and certain militant groups in Pakistan. The report concluded that 90% of the fatalities in 2023 occurred in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. There was also a rise in violence in Punjab and Sindh, though the number of fatalities remains relatively low. 2023 was also the deadliest year for security forces since 2014, where the increased number of counter-terrorism operations from 128 in 2022 to around 200 in 2023 saw a larger number of militants affiliated with Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan killed. Joining me today to discuss the nature of terrorism in Pakistan and the state response to it is Riccardo Valle. Riccardo is the Director of Research at the Islamabad-based news and research platform, the Khorasan Diary. He conducts research on international jihadist non-state actors in different areas, particularly but not exclusively in Afghanistan and Pakistan. He holds a Master's in Diplomacy and International Relations from the University of Trieste in Italy. Firstly, welcome Riccardo, and thank you for joining me for this discussion. As mentioned, it has been found that Pakistan has witnessed a significant increase in terror attacks and activities in 2023. 2024 has similarly seen an alarming number of terror-related attacks. One that was particularly shocking was the murder of 23 passengers aboard trucks and buses in Balochistan last month, when they were asked to stop as part of an identity check and were identified as Punjabi. In light of the different terrorist groups that operate in Pakistan, it would be misleading to refer to such groups without distinction. I wondered if you could start by summarising the primary groups that are active in the country and what their differing ideologies and goals are. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you, Mary, and all of you for having me here today and talking with you. It's a pleasure. So coming to your question, I think that regarding Pakistan's security landscape and regarding the militancy landscape in the country, we can identify three main segments of militancy in Pakistan. One belongs to the global jihadist movements, spearheaded in Pakistan by the Islamic State, but we also have to bear in mind that Al-Qaeda is also active in the region, in the broader region. Secondly, we have to consider the local jihadist organizations, which are very different from the ones that Pakistan witnessed after the US-led invasion of Afghanistan in 2021. The threat has evolved, and today we have the Pakistani Taliban, the conglomerate of the Pakistani Taliban, specifically Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, as you mentioned before, which is conducting its own localized jihad struggle. And finally, we have, as you also mentioned, the nationalist and non-state actors who are active in Pakistan, the broader coalition of Baloch, and also to some extent Sindhi militant organizations which are active in the country. What is interesting is that all these three segments of militancy have very different ultimate objectives. However, they all share fierce antagonism towards the state of Pakistan. So, if we want to go back to 2021, which is a watershed moment for, particularly in this region and specifically for Pakistan, we can see that the threat of militancy has considerably evolved due to what happened in Afghanistan to different extent. So, for instance, we have some militant groups which indirectly or directly benefited from the return to power of Afghan Taliban. First and foremost, of course, the Pakistani Taliban. We have been seeing them transitioning from localized tribal militia in support of Afghan Taliban struggle in Afghanistan to a full-fledged insurgency force within Pakistan, not only Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, but also in other regions, provinces of Pakistan. I have been seeing that they have been trying to emulate the Afghan Taliban models, not only concerning the patterns of attacks and strategies, localized tactics, but also to the extent of emulating their structure of command, their policies, their propaganda language. So we see that there has been a considerable evolution from the militant group which was born in. Then, as was saying, then you have other militant groups which are competitors and enemies of the Afghan Taliban, which still had been affected by the Afghan Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. So, for instance, the Islamic State. Islamic State in Pakistan, we have been seeing that it has been repositioning itself from Afghanistan towards Pakistan, specifically in certain areas in Bajor tribal district, as well as in Balochistan, where they are conducting a purely sectarian warfare against so-called soft targets in Pakistan, conducting an ideological war which is directly linked to the broader Islamic State ideology, linked to the global organization known as the Islamic State. So Pakistan today is becoming sort of a new front line for jihadist organizations who have been adjusting themselves to the new landscape in Afghanistan. And this also is true for other organizations which similarly have limited links to the Afghan Taliban, such as Baloch militant organizations, because between 2023 and 2024, we have been seeing that Baloch militant organizations, specifically certain factions like Baloch Liberation Army, the JN faction, it has really increased the quality and of its operation in challenging the states. We have been just seeing a couple of days ago Operation Herof, before we have been witnessing 4 stages of Operation Zerpazag and other operations which have been challenging directly the security apparatus of Pakistan. And and this can be linked still to the Afghan Taliban, because the Afghan Taliban transitioning from an insurgent movement to an actual state has emboldened other militant organizations, whether they are jihadist or not jihadist ones, to practically challenge the state's security and the center. So I think that today Pakistan is really at a crossroad, because it's facing new and evolving threats from multiple angles and from across all the spectrum of militancy, from jihadist and local jihadists and global jihadists, as well as nationalist movements.
Thank you so much, Riccardo. And in June, we saw that the state announced a new operation in response to increasing terrorism, and this has been called Azm-e-Istehkam. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Pakistan's recent counter-terrorism operations and initiatives, and what kind of impacts that they have had?
So Pakistan's history of a counterinsurgency operation, it's a long history. It will go back to after 2021, and from 2020, from 2007, from 2001 we saw the start, and then from 2007 we saw an increase in the number of operations conducted mostly in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province and in former Fatah region, concerning developments and insurgency which at that time was going on in Afghanistan, and considering specifically the the change in the focus of those militant organizations such as Pakistani Taliban, who were supporting the Afghan Taliban, and they, after 2007, we've seen they redirected their fight from purely concentrating around Afghanistan to also challenging Pakistani state. So the major point that Pakistan's security operations throughout history achieved has been the physical dismantling of the militants training camps and militants' bases on Pakistani soil. So we have been seeing that from at least from 2007 to 2014, we have been seeing that Pakistan has been successful in dismantling this broader network of militant organizations in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, repulsing them and forcing them to shift from Pakistan to Afghanistan. However, from 2014 up until 2021, Pakistan had limited impact on the fight against Pakistani Taliban and specifically the TTP due to the fact that the movement had been relocating itself in Afghanistan. So Pakistan had a limited power of interaction with such non-state actors. And from 2021 up until now, the militancy environment landscape in Pakistan as we have seen, it has dramatically changed. So for Pakistan to rely on the old pattern of counterinsurgency and counterterrorism operations such as, for instance, Zarb-e-Azm, like in 2014, uh, it has become quite a challenge. Meaning that as militancy has evolved from a purely kinetic force, from a purely militant struggle to a more trying to win heart and mind strategy of the TTP, but also of the Islamic State to some extent, as well as for Baloch militant organizations, for Pakistan relying entirely on this old from these old counter-terrorism operations is not enough. Because as we have been seeing, militants now they have been learning how to adapt to this new security environment. They understood that they cannot rely entirely on physical basis because Pakistan can easily um, detect them and dismantle them. So they have learned to move across the country to carry out attacks and then to again shift to new areas of operations. And I can bring you a very easy example, which can be witnessed when you're looking at the monthly report that the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP, published every month. You will see that the focus areas of operations of the TTP dramatically changed from month to month, meaning that they are able to shift from one area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but also Balochistan, to another area where they can focus for new operations. Today, we have been witness to this attack in Momand area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and these suicide operations by the TTP. And for a long time in the same area, I think it was since February 2024, there was no major operation by the TTP in this specific area, which means that they are able to shift from the different areas of Pakistan in order to strike against Pakistan security services, and when the latter try to retaliate, they can simply shift from one area to the other. So for Pakistan, coming to this announced operation in June, Azm-e-Istehkam, the major problem that many researchers and analysts see in this operation is that it can be success in terms of neutralizing militants and specific cells and networks belonging to different militant organizations. But the problem is that, as we have been witnessing since 2021, these militants have been able to find shelters in other areas of Pakistan or even in Afghanistan, as for the TTP, of course. So for Pakistan, it will become uh, really difficult to put an end just by relying on these counterterrorism operations to the broader issue of militancy. So new approaches are needed by Pakistan, which are in development. They have been already mentioned, but the problem is that they have not been enacted entirely.
And do you think that this new operation that they did announce is different to those in the past in terms of strategy, but also in terms of the reception in light of the shifting attitudes of political parties and the general public in Pakistan?
So I believe that if we look at the public opinion reaction to the announcement of the operation, we can see that there is a sharp divide between uh, people who have been supportive of the operation and people who have been skeptical to some part of the operation. So there is no doubt that uh, the approach that Pakistan has launched towards these militancy within Pakistan regions of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa specifically has been following the path of the previous military operations which have been announced in the past. Uh, However, many researchers and analysts, and from public opinion in Pakistan, they have been skeptical to the extent that they've been questioning the overall efficacy of such an operation, highlighting specifically some grievances which are rooted in several geographical areas of Pakistan towards the state. So there are some core issues which cannot be solved just with a counterinsurgency, a counter-terrorism operation. There are some underlying problems and issues which are destined to remain relevant in the political and social and economic discourse in Pakistan. And and when analyzing and monitoring militant organizations' propaganda, uh, it really becomes clear that these militant movements are extremely capable in intersecting these grievances. And so the issue for Pakistan is that they might be successful in neutralizing physically these militants to some extent. However, militants, on the other hand, they will be able to intersect such grievances and entrench themselves into some pockets, areas within different regions. And this is true not only for Pakistani Taliban, but this is something that has been recurrent throughout years for also other organizations, such as Baloch independent nationalist organizations as well.
Thank you. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. I'd just like to give a special thanks to Riccardo for taking the time to discuss increasing terrorism in Pakistan and the state's response. To the audience, we look forward to you joining us again for the next episode of Experts Dispatch. Bye for now.
Thank you very much for having me here. It has been a pleasure. Looking forward.